Welcome in. Today we're going to give you an update on Vandy United and a really exciting project. It's the Vanderbilt basketball facility and also a north end zone project at Vanderbilt Stadium. I'm Kevin Ingram, thrilled to be joined by Vanderbilt Athletics Director Candice Lee and also Al Harris. He is the principal and senior architect with Populous, who's really overseeing this whole project. Guys, great to be with you today.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Candice, first of all, let's talk about a little the philosophy behind this project, because I know it's really well thought out, not just the building and kind of how it all works, but also the overall thinking behind it.
Yeah, sure. So it's been, about 54, 55 weeks since we officially announced Vandy United. But anybody who's done a project knows that the work actually happens far before you ever feel like you're in a position to talk openly about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited because I think that today represents another step in being able to share additional details about the first of many projects that will comprise Vandy United. We know that our success depends on our team, and I feel really fortunate that we have a great team. So you're gonna get a chance to hear from Al in greater detail, but Al represents Populous, who, as the master architect for this project, we were very diligent when we decided who to work with. We knew that I don't think it's an overstatement to say that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to impact Vanderbilt Athletics and set our student athletes and community up for success. And I would say that Populous, from the very beginning, they understood what a unique opportunity that we had. When you look at our footprint, and you know this very well, that we are landlocked. And it's also important to us that everything that we do fit into the broader campus, and that we're able to meet the needs. And those needs include our fans and alumni and the broader community. And Populous understood that from the very beginning. They've taken it and they've run with it. One of the things I really like is, and we meet a lot, but every time we meet, they start with our core values and they start with our mission. And so I think every step of the way, they ensure that the things that we believe are important are actually going to come to fruition with this project. So I think people will be excited. Keep in mind that this is the first of much more information to come, but it's important that we start with step one. So I'm happy to turn it over to Al. Al, it's a pleasure to work with you and your team, and I'm glad that the fans and our community will get to hear from you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Candice. Really thrilled to be here. It's an honor to be able to speak about something that I have the utmost passion about, and that's it's architecture, it's sports, and it's being able to blend those two together. And so, look, I'm not gonna waste any more time. I'll dig right into it, but I really appreciate being here to be able to talk a little bit about some of the things that we are excited to share with you all. So the overall athletics neighborhood is going to be absolutely transformed when it's all said and done. We're going to be in relationship with Vanderbilt for a long time, and we're absolutely thrilled about it. And so one of the things we're going to talk about, is the basketball practice facility. But I wanted to show the overall vision of what Vandy United is going to end up being. And so this is basically a snapshot of some of the major projects within this first phase of the work that we're going to be doing.
And can I just jump in, Al, just to say that so what you're seeing right now are the projects that we have publicly announced. There is more work to come, but we're being very deliberate to unveil those when we have more concrete information. So there is more to come.
Right. So Candice, like you said, we always love to start with the vision, with the core values, and it started day one, right? Yes. After we were selected, and we had the opportunity to talk with you and Chancellor Dearmeyer, and this quote hits me every time I see it. What Vanderbilt is about and what you're wanting to do with these athletics projects. And so we're very fortunate to be able to be in partnership with Vanderbilt, because as Populous, we feel like we are at the forefront of disrupting all of our sports projects and entertainment that we work on. So let's get right into it. So before we put pen to paper with anything, we listen, and we've been very intentional with engaging with a lot of user groups and constituents. And so this is just the basic framework of what we've heard, over the first, I'd say 2 months of working with Vanderbilt. And so some of the things that we're going to want to make sure that we, grasp and understand is the history, speak to the tradition and the excellence, make sure the architecture is clean, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's all about performance, and it's about enhancing the student athlete experience. So when we talk about elite and development, right, we want to make sure that that's at the forefront of our design thinking As we go into our core design principles, we take the things that we've heard and we kind of distill it down and start form making. And some of the ideas that we really want to drive home with all of these projects. And with the basketball project specifically, we want to make sure it's performance driven, like I mentioned before. It's all about the student athlete and development, both athletically as well as academically. Candice, you said you're landlocked. I'm a firm believer in constraints brings out the best design thinking. And so I'm excited to share what we've done with the basketball building to help leverage that proximity, make it a positive and not necessarily a negative. Right?
Yeah, one of the things you said, you wanted to take advantage of this space and not fight this space. And I thought that was a really interesting way of putting it.
Absolutely. With the campus and the athletics neighborhood specifically being so tight, we felt we had a lot of opportunities to really take advantage of the closeness. And you'll see here in the diagrams here in a second how we're really embracing the proximity, embracing the closeness, and how we connect these buildings, the new buildings to the old and the old to the new, and really make it a cohesive neighborhood.
We move forward, and it's really exciting to take a look at how all this comes together.
Absolutely. So we've mentioned, a couple different times now about the challenges as a site. And not only is the site tight, the shape of it, is unique in and of itself. And so one of the things that we always like to do is, first and foremost, we got to make sure we get people in and out in a safe environment, right? With the uniqueness of our site, we had to make sure that we honored the existing conditions. Gate 1, Gate 4, those are gates into football, so we had to maintain those. That helped us develop the building footprint. Step 2 of designing this building centered around the function of the facility. We obviously needed courts for both men's and women's programs. In an ideal situation, you'd want these on the ground together. Given the site constraints and the limitations that we have to kind of expand due to the Marriott to the north and the Kensington Garage Memorial Gym to the east, we had to stack the gyms. This is something that we've done before. There's not a lot of these building types like this in the country. But we have done this before, like I said, and we're very confident that this absolutely works. After that, this ended up providing us a very unique situation with a basketball practice facility that you typically don't see. When you have a practice facility that's spread across one level, you always want to locate your performance programs on the same floor as your basketball floor. So that's the weight room, that's the locker rooms, the athletic training. And this situation, we were able to not only do that, but also include the coaches' spaces. Typically on a more traditionally laid basketball practice facility, you have a second floor dedicated to coaches and staff. Given the site constraints, we had to get really creative on programming the building so everyone has the adequate space. And it provides a different leverage point for student athletes to be able to move around in an efficient manner. We all know that student athlete time is delicate and it's sensitive, and we need to be sure that they get from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. And so we felt like that stacking the program for men's and women's provided that opportunity. And finally, kind of in the middle of this environment is the shared spaces. So this is where the weight room, the athletic training lives. And if we go into and kind of cut the cake in half, you'll see here that what that offers us is an opportunity for the men's and women's teams to have equal access to those shared spaces. So the hydrotherapy, the athletic training, the weight room, everyone's going to be able to come at equal distance to these spaces. One of the things we see in a more traditional practice facility is sometimes the men or the women may have a little bit of a better access point to these spaces. We feel like we've solved that part of the puzzle by sandwiching the shared spaces in between the two programs.
And I have to say that I watch you all iterate through this and take the feedback from the coaches, and the fact that you did find a way that both programs could have equal access. That's consistent with who we are. And so I very much appreciate, and on behalf of our programs, appreciate that y'all took that very seriously.
Absolutely. Equity is important to us. We take that very seriously. It's not about Title IX. It's just about offering an equitable experience for everyone involved in experiencing this building.
And Candice, too, I think that's good, too, that the student athletes and coaches and everybody have the chance to have those, interactions on a daily basis to where, the programs are working together and you're not just sort of separated by floors, but everybody's together in the same space.
Yeah, I think that's important. One of the things, we were excited about so many aspects of Vanderbilt basketball, but, I talk about this a lot, that to watch Jerry Stackhouse and his program and Shay Ralph and her program, they support each other. Their kids cheer for each other. They pick each other's brains. I mean, this building represents the tone of those programs, right? Where everybody has their own space, but there's also a shared aspect, and then it's connected to the broader athletics footprint, like football, like, things that touch all of our student athletes. That's who we are. That's who we are. So Al, I remember you saying early on in one of our meetings that everything that we did would be a tangible representation of who we are. Everything that you all gave us would represent what Vanderbilt stands for. I just, I'm excited about this because I think this is a great example of that.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you a technical question about stacking gyms. What goes in as far as like reinforcement on the floor, soundproof and all those things where, if you're having practice at the same time, you're not going, what's happening up there and down there? How does all that work?
As I mentioned before, this is a model that's not common, but it's been done. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the reasons why people kind of stray away from it is because of the assumed fear of noise. Mm-hmm. And it's more about the vibrations, actually. Right. And so we're very careful, and our design team and the structural engineers that we have on board have many years of experience in understanding how to mitigate vibration through the structure. And so we've got a lot of different technical ways of how we're handling that, and I can guarantee you that the men's gym will not hear or feel the vibrations of footfalls and basketballs, from the women's. So I think moving on, Candice, you mentioned the tangibility of Vanderbilt and the values and the principles. Mm-hmm. And again, with the proximity of these buildings, we had a great opportunity that we could not miss out on in how we address this building to football. Yes. Right? And so this is probably one of the most coolest things that I've seen, because while there may be other universities that have end zone buildings, I don't think there's really one that has a basketball centered focus, but also is taking care of football at the same time. And so what we're illustrating here is offering multiple sports and multiple fan bases a unique experience and to be able to enjoy this building. This is a basketball practice facility, but we also want to make sure that the fans and patrons get to experience it on a football game day, right? And so what we did, we wanted to enhance the fan experience on football game day by giving them a 360-degree concourse. And so what you see here underneath the spectator seating, we've actually elevated the concourse from the east over to the west to give fans access full 360 degrees around the field on a game day environment. You'll also see kind of off to the right is a bridge element. And I'll get to that when we get into the plans. But now we're starting to talk about leveraging that proximity of each building, right? And we're going to want to make connections into each building. Like I said, I'll talk about that here in a second. But finally, to support those spectator facilities and those amenities, we wanted to give the North End Zone fans a premium experience. And so we'll talk a little bit about what that means and some of the lounges and the club spaces that we've created. That's going to serve as some multi-purpose space for basketball as well as football.
And I think to that point, even beyond that, multi-purpose space that we could end up using every day of the week. Absolutely. And so absolutely it will enhance game days, but we have the opportunity both within athletics and beyond to utilize space. I mean, it's much needed space, so I'm excited about that.
Let's dive into the floor plans. So first and foremost, like I said earlier, in regards to carving out the site and developing our building footprint, and building the volumes to kind of understand our function, getting folks in and out of this facility was a little bit of a tricky challenge. Mm-hmm. If you all know and remember and kind of realize, the North End Zone right now is a back of house situation, right? I think for concerts it serves as stage in. I think emergency vehicles come in and out of there. And on Tuesday afternoon, right, it's where operations kind of lives. And so We understood what that meant, putting a building that's essentially turning a back of house situation into a very front of house situation. We'll talk a little bit about what that means here in a little bit. But we organized the building in a couple of different ways to where we wanted to make sure that we gave the public a clear understanding of where the gateway into the neighborhood from the north is. At the same time, we wanted to make sure that the basketball programs had a direct and clear understanding of where their home starts. And so understanding that the majority of the student athletes come in from the east, we felt like putting the team entry on the east side of the building made the most sense. It's a private entry, and it's a dedicated entry for student athletes and staff and coaches, while we locate the public more to the north and the west to give them not only access to a brand new building, but we're also transforming Gate 1 into more of a pedestrian-friendly and inviting environment, hoping to increase the traffic there on football game day. And like I said before, all on the same level of level 1, we have our men's coaches' offices and staff offices and locker rooms. And in between all of that, and this permeates through the entire building, we've got what we call the central spine. Consider this kind of the heartbeat of the facility, to where the student athletes, coaches, staff will be able to meander up and down this spine and share space with one another.
In designing facilities like this, what have you learned about how the flow of the buildings work, and just to where things make sense as far as where the athletes, the student athletes and the coaches have their own space, but it all makes sense as far as how you travel throughout the course of a regular day?
Yeah, it's all about efficiency, right? Getting the student athletes where they need to be as quickly as possible, because time is limited. The time with coaching staff is limited. Time to train is limited, time to practice is limited. So we want to make sure that when we lay these spaces out, we're able to take advantage fully of the time limitations that they have on them, while also giving them, maximizing the amount of space that they can use. If we move up one level, this level essentially shows our performance level. Talking with the strength training staff and the athletic training staff, they really wanted us to take a unique look at how performance is conducted, and not segregate the weight room from the athletic training and vice versa. But before we get into that, this diagram essentially shows that football environment that we've created off of the south of the basketball practice facility, to where you see this 360-degree concourse with the seating in the front, and then that arrow that runs sideways on the screen, that's a connection into Memorial Gymnasium. And so on this second floor, we're going to allow fans and patrons, whether you're a football fan or patron and a donor, or whether you're there for basketball, to be able to take advantage of being able to go back and forth at Memorial Gym. And we'll get into why that's important here in a second. Before we go into that, let me go back to the training piece. And so this is what we call the performance level. We're not dictating what is what. We're hoping to bleed the athletic training and the strength training together to enhance the student athlete experience.
I remember the coaches thought that was very, very important for flow, and those staffs talk a lot. They're in constant communication in support of the student athletes. I remember that was very important to them. That's
right. Our research has shown that the strength training and the athletic training staff, the student athlete that has an environment similar to this, the recovery is less, the rehab is less, and the performance is more. We've got some donor and donor space opportunities also that we've folded in here. So this is for those donors and those high-end people who want to come in and experience practice in a unique setting. So this is more than just caster chairs on the floor. This is an actual lounge space where they can enjoy themselves. Maybe bring a recruit up here.
Recruits, I think
absolutely.
Would be great recruiting space.
And then finally, I mentioned earlier about the football, pathways with the 360-degree concourse and the ability to be able to go into Memorial Gym. We've kind of bookended that with not only a team dining space, but a premium space for game day. This is basketball or football. On a non-game day environment, this is going to be the new team dining area. Consider this the new Admiral room, right? And so we're going to have enhanced finishes and a really home home feel for the student athletes to be able to have pregame and postgame meals.
And I think, this is important because this is so on game days, like you said, the ability to have pregame meal in your space, again, talking about the importance of efficiency. This won't replace what we'll ultimately see in Magoogan, where all of our student athletes eat the majority of their meals. Again, the idea that there's connectivity is important. However, we know that in specific sports, there are specific needs. Right. And so I love how you all balance that. That's really important to us.
Yes.
And that pregame meal, I mean, that's an important part of a game day.
It
where
is.
Everybody sits together and you kind of have that time where you have the food, but you also kind of think about what's ahead as far as the game coming up.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, 100 years ago, when I played, once you had shoot around, you were like that shoot around kind of started like your focus on the game. And so pregame becomes a part of the ritual. Now that was 100 years ago, but I imagine it's still about the same.
Moving up one more level. And one thing that I want to make clear is that the men's footprint on level 1 and the women's footprint on level 3 are identical. Mm-hmm. Square footages are identical. Again, we're talking about equity and making sure every student athlete gets the utmost premium experience. Offices, layouts, and the locker room and the lounge may be a little bit different. Those specifics we're currently working with both programs on. Those are going to take on the personality of the head coach and the staff and the student athletes, right? But we wanted to make sure that first and foremost, the footprint was exactly the same. Mm-hmm. And so just like in the men's level on the first floor, the women have their practice gym on the third level, their locker spaces, lounges, film room on the third level. And they obviously share the level with their coaches and staff.
We joke, Al, because one of the questions is, well, how did the men get the first floor and how did the women get the third floor? And the answer is that's what they wanted.
That's what they wanted, backed 100% by science.
Backed by science.
And so similarly to the second floor, the way the third floor laid out, it offered us some additional public-facing, football-facing opportunities for premium fans and patrons for both football and basketball. So we've got a couple of terraces and balconies. So not only for the football patrons and basketball patrons, but for also the student athletes and the staff and the programs to go out and enjoy a nice, relaxing day on an April afternoon. And similarly to the men, we wanted to make sure we provided that same balcony experience for donors and families and recruits on the fourth level. So it's a 4-story building. We're at about 90,000 square feet in its totality. So it is one of our larger practice facilities that we've designed at Populous. I think it will probably be one of the largest in the country. But it's not about the size for us. It's about the fit. And we feel like this building is going to fit Vanderbilt. It's going to enhance the values of what the university is all about, and it's absolutely going to increase the development of the student athletes, and that's what's the most important thing.
That's right.
So one of the largest facilities, one of the smallest spaces.
On one of the smallest spaces.
That's right. That's right.
That's right. The one last thing from a floor plan standpoint is the site. I mentioned maintaining gates 1 and gates 4 earlier, but I wanted to kind of show everyone how that's developing and why that's important, that not only that we maintain the gates, but we enhance the experience. Most football stadiums are what I like to describe as 4 elevation buildings, which means you walk around the entire building. It's got to be designed clearly so it doesn't look like there's a back of house or there's something that's less than the desirable of an approach. With us removing the back of house of the north right now and enhancing that experience, we wanted to make sure that not only the building spoke to the importance and the importance of the football stadium, but also how we approach the building from a pedestrian standpoint. Vanderbilt is all about is making the change from a vehicular way of getting through the campus to more pedestrian. And so we understanding those values of with mobility and Move VU, we wanted to make sure that not only was the building able to be accessible for patrons, but also for those with mobility challenges. And so we're continuously working on how everyone, able-bodied and those who may be a little bit mobility challenged, are able to experience these buildings. to kind of wrap things up, I kind of wanted to talk a little about some of the design vision, right? We talked about the floor plans and the organization, the function of the building, but understanding that at the end of the day, these are civic, we treat these buildings as civic monuments. You know, we understand that these buildings need to last a long time, and that's got to be an inherent beauty behind them. And so one of the things that we did was really take a close look at future VU, especially around sustainability and the ability for us to be able to really tap into those values. And we believe that this building is shaping up to include a lot of those things. And one of those things is maximizing the natural light. We've got a north-facing front of the building that we want to take advantage of what we describe as diffuse light. You know, with the sun shining primarily from east to west along a southern trajectory, it gives a softer, less harsh light to minimize glare and heat gain inside the building. We're currently looking at different types of materials outside of glass, like polycarbonate, to help with that diffuse light, while offering the same level of sustainability metrics that we've been charged to meet.
Yeah, it's interesting that you're talking about the technology changing for natural light. Been in old gyms where they have giant windows and there's a lot of glare. Been in some newer facilities where it worked perfectly and you had the natural light, there wasn't the glare, and it really enhanced the place.
Absolutely, it does enhance the place. Even though sometimes we're charged with mimicking the competition floor in a basketball practice environment, we feel that there are so many natural benefits to being able to work out with natural light more than artificial light, right? And so we wanted to make sure that we were clear with the staff and with the programs that they wouldn't get glare, right? And that the performance of the players would not be hampered due to this. You know, just as important as what the building looks like during the day, you know, we want to make sure that it provides a level of drama at night as well. And so obviously adding a lot of glass and kind of clear materials gives us an opportunity to provide kind of a canvas for an identity at night. We talked a little bit earlier about this approach from the north on Natchez Trace into the neighborhood, and what a way to be able to experience, you know, your first glimpse of Vanderbilt in the athletics neighborhood at night, and with kind of a glowing lantern in front of you, right? We talked a little bit about landscape. You know, some of the key strategies that we're incorporating with this design is using it as a unifying element, not only within the neighborhood, but within the broader campus. You know, Vanderbilt is a registered arboretum, and so we're working really hard to bring in those elements into every facility. And here with the basketball building, we're looking at different ways to maybe terrace, greenery, and like I mentioned earlier, really offering an accessible and natural environment for people to enjoy as they approach the building. You know, some of the details that we're really looking into are based off of sustainability in the feel of a green environment. You know, these buildings will be LEED Gold, and so we have the opportunity to really showcase what that means. One of the things that we wanted to do on the outside as well as the inside is to start introducing a warmer, what we describe palette, right? Yeah. So wood and natural materials to make the place feel a little bit more inviting. These buildings are big, and so we have to make sure that we do some things that help bring down the scale and make it more of an inviting environment. So not only on the outside we want to introduce wood, but we also want to introduce wood inside as well. You know, whether it's the basketball gyms or the weight room, integrating some of those design features from the out in the end, hopefully playing off of the broader conversation that Vanderbilt is trying to tell. And then finally, I mentioned the central spine. This diagram here shows what that could really mean as people traverse up and down a level of stairs and some elevators to get from floor 1 to floor 2, floor 3, and down below. Look, we feel like this is going to be a gem of a project. It's going to be an icon for the university. We're thrilled to be able to offer such a unique opportunity to build one of the biggest practice facilities on one of the smallest sites. We're up for the challenge. I feel like the team has been absolutely amazing, and not only delivering, but first and foremost listening. We're in current development stages of the design now, and I mentioned before, we're talking with both programs, making sure that those different personalities of those spaces start to come alive. But the outside of the building, we're looking at as a true gateway into the athletics neighborhood, both for now and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think that you have beautifully captured what we're trying to do. And that is, we are trying to be the biggest and the best, even if we're the smallest, right? We are trying to be integrated and connected with this university because we are in alignment with it. We are trying to provide a championship level experience to everyone who's important to us, right? So that starts with the student athletes, but that's alumni and fans and donors and faculty and staff. And I appreciate this because this is, like you said at the beginning, this is going to be a transformation. This is the first step. It will be iconic. Mm-hmm. It will be beautiful. It will be effective. It will be efficient. And I'm excited. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the partnership of your team.
Absolutely. Thank you. This has been a blast, and I'm looking forward to the continued relationship that we have going on here. This building is going to be absolutely amazing, and we're just absolutely thrilled to be able to have an opportunity to work on.
Can I ask you one thing, Al, one thing that we didn't talk about that I think is important? In January we did a kind of a farewell reception to Palmer Fieldhouse, as it has to come down in order to build everything that we've talked about today. But your team, like you said, y'all have been listening to us, and it's really important to us to memorialize Palmer and to make sure that we capture it in the new space. I know you all are thinking about it, not trying to commit you to anything, but could you just talk a little bit about some of the thoughts around that?
Absolutely. Palmer Fieldhouse has been an anchor of the athletics department for a very long time. And some of the ways we're thinking about memorializing that is, we've got a couple of different options. Mm-hmm. Do we memorialize it on site? Mm-hmm. Where we were looking at ways to where we can basically mark the current location of Palmer. Another option that we're looking at is, do we memorialize it within the building? Mm-hmm. And I think that comes with its own challenges. Mm-hmm. Do we want to give it to the student athletes alone, mm-hmm. and put it in a space that's a little bit more private, a little bit more intimate? Or do we want to open it up to the fans and to the community? Right. And so we're looking at a couple of different options all throughout the entire neighborhood, mm-hmm. the stadium site specifically.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, that's important to us, right? To make sure that we honor our history as we move into the future. So I appreciate that y'all are being so thoughtful, not just about this, but about all of it. So thank you.
Al, it's a beautiful project. Thanks for the time. It's so interesting to me how you look at every single detail, including how it fits in within the framework of everything else on the campus and the other buildings around it. It is so interesting.
Yeah, this has been a fun process. Every project offers its own challenges and its own rewards. And I think the thing that I'm going to be most proud of here is how constraints bringing out the most creative design thinking. I've been in some challenging situations. I don't think I'm going to get into another one this challenging, but I honestly think the solution here fits the environment. It's Vanderbilt. It's Nashville at a broader scale, and this is going to be just the beginning of a huge transformation within the neighborhood and the campus.
And Candice, this is just the start, isn't it? We're going to have lots more updates like this as we go along.
There we are. It's important to us to be transparent along the way. We'd like to come with information when we have more information to share. We've got our heads down just working, but I look forward to many more opportunities to share what's going on.
Vanderbilt Athletics Director Candice Lee, Al Harris, Senior Architect and Principal with Populous. Thanks so much for the time, and it's really exciting stuff.
Thank you.
I'm Kevin Ingram. We'll talk to you soon.